Hi, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. And I've been trying to decide for a while whether I wanted to tell this story or not. And I decided I am going to tell the story. It's an interesting story. It's a story that took place when I was either probably 18, I guess 18, because I was still in school. And really, this is a story of how God saved the life of a foolish girl. And I was that foolish girl. So halfway through my senior year, I had almost all the credits that I needed to graduate. So I began going to school half time. And I worked full time at a restaurant. It was called Vips Restaurant. Um, I don't know if they even have those anymore. They were kind of famous for their hot fudge sundaes. And I don't really know anything else that they were really famous for, but I know that they were for that. So, half-time school, full-time working, and I expected myself to get near perfect grades. I don't know that my folks expected that, but I knew that if I worked really hard, I could. Some people, it seemed like learning things just came easy to them and they could recall them, but I really, really had to study many hours every day in order to get those type of grades, which I did get, which was a good thing. The bad thing is that I tended to sleep about 2.5 hours a night for the second half of the school year. So one night, I was so tired after work. I'd worked, of course, the late shift and got off. I don't know what time I would have got off. Probably after the bars closed. I wasn't working in a bar, but I kind of did that closing time, so 2 or 3 in the morning, and I was headed home. So I was headed home from a town called Canyonville to my home, which was in Riddle. And it's not a very far distance, maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 miles. But I was exhausted, really, really sleepy, which is different than my exhaustion now, because now my exhaustion, I can't necessarily sleep, but I just get overwhelmingly tired. But back then I knew that it was really kind of iffy if I could even stay awake long enough to get home. So in my 18-year-old mind, I knew I had to drive fast to get home. Now, I drove fast. That is a common thing that young people do, because for myself, I just believed I was such a good driver that it would be just fine. But in reality now, I know that even though I had a couple years of experience driving, that was only a couple years. And I wasn't taking into account things that you have no control over. And there are so many things. So I was headed home. It was very common for me to drive on that road 80 miles an hour at night. I certainly never wanted to hit 100, because I was sure that if I ever hit 100, one of my tires would fall off. I don't know why I thought that, but that was my thought. I think now that it was just surely God protecting me from wanting to push my car to go that speed. Well, I was headed home and I was driving very fast. And I went around some corners and I got about a mile away from Riddle. And I went to round a curve. And I knew after that curve was a big straight stretch. And so I just put my foot all the way down. And I got up to 99 miles an hour. Wouldn't do 100, 99. As I finished rounding that corner, the entire road, it was just 2 lanes, but it was 2 nice wide lanes, was covered with flashing lights all the way across it. I didn't know what was going on at first. I just knew that was a whole lot of police cars. And they were all the way across. And I began to slow down because, the road was blocked. And then I saw what had happened. Somebody had hit a horse, and that horse was in the middle of the road. And I was trying to slow down. I really was trying to slow down, but there was no way that I could stop physically before I got to those police cars. There just wasn't any way at all. And so I got down to about 60 miles an hour when that realization came to me. And my next thought that I had, as a teenager would have, is, oh my gosh, my dad is going to kill me. So I made another decision, another bad decision. And that decision was, I saw where there was an open enough space I could squeeze past that horse and between 2 of the police cars. And there were police standing out in the road. I mean, they were all there. And I could get past them. So I stepped on the gas again. Just full board stepped on that gas. And I went between them, just fast, and I was between them. I must have scared them to death. But I was scared to death too. Not in the same way as they were. I knew that I could make that. They, I'm sure, did not know that I could make that. And then I went flying into Riddle. I was sure they would be behind me. I don't know if they really were. This doesn't sound nice, but there was a big part of me thinking that I probably scared them so bad that they needed to go home and change. But I didn't want to have them follow me home. So I spent several minutes, maybe 15 minutes, driving around Riddle, a little tiny town in the middle of the night, probably close to 3 o'clock in the morning, probably the only person driving around at 3 o'clock in the morning. So they couldn't follow me home. I didn't tell my folks about that for years. And I was very thankful that it ended the way that it did. I believe completely that God saved my life, if not that night, in the future. Because what that gave me was the true realization that things happen out of your control. And you need to be prepared for them. And at that type of speed, there was no way I could be prepared for them. So after that point, I dramatically slowed down. I didn't drive that road 80 miles an hour anymore. And the other thing that happened that was really interesting was if I was tired after that, for years and years after that, I would suddenly see a dead horse in the road. You know, I don't know if I was beginning to doze off. I don't know what it was. And that would always scare me. In fact, when I got married, about 9 months later, my first marriage to a man named Jim, Jim didn't drive, or didn't have a license at least. And after all day with festivities, finally in the late evening, we were headed to the coast, and I was driving, and I was tired. And at some point during the drive, because that was probably an hour and a half or 2 hour drive, I got so tired, I slammed on the brakes. And poor Jim, this was before shoulder straps. He did have on a seatbelt. His head hit the windshield. Well, I'm glad to say he was okay. And I was okay. And I learned not to be driving when I was so tired. So I just wanted to share this little bit of a story because God loves us. He protects us in so many ways that we have no idea. In fact, we never know when our time is really going to come. And I know of many people who have lost family members or good friends that were driving too fast. Or maybe they were driving under the influence, which is not what I was doing at all. And it can happen in a blink of an eye. So think and be careful and know that God loves you and know that He protects us so often, but don't take it for granted. He gave us a brain to think with, and I'm glad that mine became clearer on this type of thing over the years. So it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. I want to pray blessings on you and yours, in your house, out of your house, in the day and the night. And whatever you do, keep dreaming.